Hey everyone, Stephen Andrew Bolin here with the Proverbs 2717 YouTube channel. I have one of the most amazing guests of interviewing so far. It's Miss Nell Wyatt-Lee. She's not just the author of the Battle for the Firstborn book. Let me see if I can get it on there. It's not wanting to show. I got it on Amazon, but she's also the widowed wife of Ron Wyatt, the man who found Noah's Ark for us, and Mount Sinai.
Well, I am very honored to be on your show. It's a pleasure.
I really appreciate that. If you don't mind, I saw you about the book with Scott Laird on Shabbat Night Live, and your husband, Randall, was there. And I felt like I wanted to know more about your guys' story. So could you kind of tell us how you guys met and how that prospered into a marriage?
Yes. My husband, Ron, he died in 1999, and our anniversary was July the 5th. So 4 years after he died, I think it was 4 years after he died, I said a prayer. I was at my daughter's house, and they were having a 4th of July party, and there were married couples there, and I just felt like, I know I'm not young anymore, but if it's your will, Lord, I would like someone to help me, And so on July the 5th was when I said that prayer on Ron and I's anniversary. And on July the 10th, we flew to Jerusalem. We were doing a dig on some of Ron's work. Randall was one of the volunteers, so I met him in Jerusalem. And and so he was just really nice, and we just, Now Randall, he lived in Montana at the time. He's from Texas, and so it took us a while to get to know each other, because I would fly to Montana and my daughter's going, oh no, what's going on here, But I know that the Lord brought Randall, into my life and into this work, because when we met, he had already heard about Ron's work, and he had gone to Noah's Ark in, I think, 2000, and spent a month there all by himself. So
wow.
Yeah.
And that's in Turkey, right?
That's in Turkey.
So that can be dangerous just going by yourself. I mean, I've heard it could even be dangerous with a group of people.
Well, it could. His group was kidnapped in 91 and held for 21 days. So that was rough. That was real rough. But if you stay out of the areas that are known to be difficult, it's okay. It's okay.
Oh, okay. So you guys, you met, how long was it after he came back from Noah's Ark where you and Randall were able to meet? You said it was in Jerusalem, right?
Yeah, we met in Jerusalem in 2003. I think that's right, 2003, and married in 2004. We married a year later. Yeah.
And what are the odds that God would bring someone into your life who was already familiar with Ron's work, and you guys had that you could bond over?
Exactly. And my prayer was, when I first met Ron, I had prayed, I was 36 or 37, I can't remember. And I had just committed my life to Jesus. I came right out of the world. And after reading the Bible and all for myself, I became convicted about the Sabbath, but I knew no one else who kept it. And so when I met Ron Wyatt in my office, he was the first person I'd ever met who believed in the biblical Sabbath.
You know what? I'm a Torah observant Christian myself, and I've always been a fan of Ron Wyatt, of course, but I never knew until just now that he was a Sabbath keeper.
Oh, yes. Yep.
That is so cool. If
Mm-hmm.
I want to know how many years of research went into your book, The Battle for the Firstborn, um, and what was your aha moment when you figured out, hey, I found the proof, the smoking gun, like I just proved Ron Wyatt's theory right?
I always, I never doubted it, but I had a hard time proving it because I began in 1988, right after we got married. I've got a video of us out on the in the hotel at the Red Sea crossing with me working on it. And Ron saying, "It's 4 o'clock in the morning, woman, go to sleep," because I just, it was on my mind, and I'm one of these people that I just, But I started in '88, and fortunately, I live near Vanderbilt University, where they have a great library. And I will say that if you're doing research on anything like this, you have to go to the original, the first original excavation records to get the facts, because things change. Everybody's got a theory, just like Ron did. Everybody's
Mhm.
got a theory, and they write their book and everything, but you've got to have the facts as they came out. And so it took me 30 some odd years to get it all together. Now, as for the aha moment, well, I can't say that there was one, because I always believed, after my first trip overseas with Ron, when I saw everything. I mean, I couldn't see the Ark of the Covenant, and we couldn't go to Saudi Arabia, but that first year I went overseas 2 or 3 times with him and saw everything, and I knew it was all true. So when he told me this, I didn't doubt him, but as I was researching it, it was difficult. The key to everything, Ron, and I believe that this is an insight that God gave him. A lot of the times, pharaohs are listed in a line right down here, like this,
Mhm.
one after another. But many times, this one and this one are the same person. They're in different categories. Just like we have a president and a vice president. In ancient Egypt, once they reunified the country and no longer had a separate north and south, they had to have a pharaoh in Memphis in the north. And then they always had one in Thebes in the south. And so once I figured that out, I mean, it was, everything fit.
And,
Everything just rolled into place.
and how did you figure that out? Because I don't think anyone else has ever offered that theory, about the
No,
regent and co-regent being one and the
right.
same at some
No.
times. Like, how did you come across that?
Well, Ron had told me that was the case. So when I studied the pharaohs and the ancient records and everything, I discovered that there were many of the same people mentioned in this pharaoh's lifetime and in this pharaoh's lifetime. But once they moved from Thebes to Memphis, they had all new officials.
Mhm.
So I couldn't say, oh, they have the same officials, but there are a lot of the same people. And the numbers worked out when in my chart that I made. As I would put them in, the numbers in, it was amazing how, in other words, instead of having a line here, this is his timeline, and then this is this guy's timeline, they're the same person, so their timelines overlap. And it fell into place. It was, when something is correct, it's easy.
How many times have you personally been to Mount Sinai?
I have not been to Mount Sinai, but Randall has been 3 times. So
And Ron, of course, went also. So between your husbands, have they described to you what it's like standing at the actual mountain of God?
Oh, I have so much footage. I have probably thousands of hours of video. I feel like, and I mean, the really 4K stuff. I feel like I really don't need to go there. I've seen everything there. It's wonderful.
Okay.
But I'm hoping to go in the spring.
Okay. Now, you said that you have some pictures. Are some of these pictures of Sinai? Do you want to go ahead and share some of
Yes,
those now?
can you see that?
I do. Is this the valley?
Okay. This is the plain in front of Mount Sinai. I don't know if you can see my pointer or not, but this is the peak up here, the top. Can you see my pointer?
I don't see your pointer, but I do see the
Okay.
black peak where it's
Okay.
obviously been scorched by fire.
Right. Well, this is it. And if you are interested in it, we can do more programs where I can show photos and videos.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, well, no problem with that. Right below there, I mean, it's so much to describe, but we'll do a show on that if you want to.
Yeah.
There's a lot out there.
Now, these plains down here that you're describing, is this where the 12 tribes and the sojourners actually gathered? This
Right.
is where they
Yes.
walked and stepped?
Yes. When he found the chariot parts in the Red Sea in 1978, he said he knew that Mount Sinai was in Saudi Arabia. It had to be because it's right across the Gulf.
Right.
So back then, in those days, this was even before I met him. This was in 78. He began studying flight maps. If you're familiar with flight maps, they do show terrain, but it's in numbers. It's hard, but it's all you could get back then.
Right,
And
grids.
Right, and he found a place there in front of a mountain. He was looking for a place, he said, where 1,000,000+ people could camp out, plus
Right.
their animals.
Right.
And so, it's got to be a big place. So he did find a place that looked like it was surrounded by an ancient volcano. And then it was right in front of a mountain. So him and his son snuck into the country because after 4 years they couldn't. I know it's not funny because it cost them 78 days in prison over there. Yeah.
That was from his first trip when he first found the location?
Trip. Yes. Yeah. Another man that Ron had shared the information with that he was going to sneak over there promptly called the Saudi embassy and told them that the Wyatts were Israeli spies. And
no, that's what led up to it?
That's what led up to it. So even though what he had learned was if you sneak in, they're just going to escort you out of the country. So he wasn't afraid. But then he discovered that it didn't work that way if they thought you were an Israeli spy. So as they were leaving the country, they were, arrested and put in jail. I shouldn't call it a prison. It was in the little town of Hagel, which is right at the Jordanian border. It's near where they had snuck across. And they didn't treat them too badly, but they were not allowed to contact their embassy or anything like that.
Wow. Was he able to bring home any rocks or pebbles?
Nothing. They took all of his footage, everything. He was lucky to get out with his 2 sons. And that's what really devastated him was he had his 2 boys with him, and they were in prison too.
Was that his last go to Sinai, or was he able to make it back?
He made it back. He swore he'd never go back, but a Saudi prince by the name of Samran al-Matari called Ron in Nashville. He was a prince in Tabuk, the nearest big city to Mount Sinai. And he told Ron over the phone, Ron, I'm having to relate what Ron said because I wasn't around then, but he said that Samron said, you have to take me to this mountain. Ever since I've heard about this, because he was friends with the interrogators that had interrogated him. So
Oh,
that's how he
wow.
found out about it. Right. So he said, I have to see this mountain. You have to show me. He says, I can't sleep. I can't do anything. And Ron said, well, I don't think so. But he said he was going to Noah's Ark with a new researcher, and would Samron care to join him over there? Now, this is after Samron had flown to Nashville and visited with him and pretty much begged him. Long story short, they ended up, Samron came to see Noah's Ark, and he was so convinced of that. He said, I think this man is telling the truth. So they went over there, they had a contract, they did it legally. And the friend that was with Ron at Noah's Ark had brought metal detecting equipment, and they took that with them. And when the first time Ron saw Mount Sinai on that first trip, he absolutely believed that was it, because there was a huge man-made lake in front of the mountain. And it's dry now. Of course, the stream that descended from the mount is gone.
Right.
And
the split rock?
No, that's on the other side of the mountain.
Okay.
Okay? Because that is when they were coming. When they were coming there, they stopped there. But anyhow, he was convinced. And when they got there that time, they started digging in, they used the electronic equipment, and they found a gold reading. So the dig team started digging, and they found wells around the edge of this lake. And 20 foot down in one of these wells was a gold bracelet. And think about this, some Israelite girl getting her water, and her bracelet fell off into the well. But as nice as that was, it caused them to get put under house arrest.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
Wow. So this was like one brick wall after another every time he tried to go out there. And this time he went with a prince.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Wow. Well, and that goes back to what you were saying, and what I mentioned earlier. What man intends for evil, God can use for good. And that person calling and reporting that Ron was sneaking into the country, or what his plan was, and then ending up with the prince who's friends with the interrogator, like, God definitely turned that around and used it for good.
I believe you're right. Yeah.
That's awesome.
Mm-hmm.
And Noah's Ark, you've actually touched part of it. Can you relate to anything in this world, what it's like to actually touch part of Noah's Ark?
Well, I've been to Noah's Ark probably 20 or 25 times. I've been there a lot. Yeah. Wow. And we are going again in October. We're taking Ron's daughter, Michelle, as she, being a girl, she never got to go to these places. So now we're going to take her and her husband and go there in October. And the first time that I went there with Ron, it was in May of 1988, and it was still wet. They have a lot of snow and ice out there, and it's 6,200 feet up in the mountain. And so as that was melting, there was a lot of water, and it was hard to get on the ark, but because of the water, you had to jump ditches and everything. But I was young enough then, I could do it. Yeah. But I can't even describe to you how it felt. It was, it just.
Could you feel the connection to that biblical history that has like haunted our dreams? I mean, that's how I imagine it.
Oh, there's just no, it's not what people expect. People, want to see a finished ship sitting out on a mountain looking like a boat. And this one was obviously covered in lava at some point, which once again, God used that to preserve it. Because when the lava, as it began to deteriorate, it began to fossilize. And it's amazing.
That is so cool. Do you want to share some more of your photos with us?
Let me see. I don't have a whole lot. Let me show you this. This is a cool story. You can see that the ark is flat, even with the ground, and just a ridge around it.
Right.
You see that? So
Yes.
when Ron first went there in 1977 and finally saw that the last day he was there, he said, it's so big. It's 515 foot long. So it's huge. It's almost 2 football fields.
And if you think about it,
massive.
it would have to be, but you probably still
Right.
don't picture it that size.
I know. And he said, I've got to go home and just pray about this, because on that first trip, God had intended for him to find something else, and that was the village where there were drogue stones that had 8 crosses on them. There was a house that we believe was Noah's house, and very ancient. There's a lot of stuff that he found.
I've never even heard of that.
Okay, well, what happened is they were coming into the town. They were Ron told on another program, I'll play some of this for you. But Ron told the boys to pray that God would make the taxi cab bringing them into town to stop where they're supposed to look, because he had no idea where to look. No idea. And it ended up stopping 3 times. And they got out and piled up rocks and everything and went back out there. And that's when he found a lot of stuff. We'll cover this on another program because it's too much to talk about here.
Wow.
It really is.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'd love to have you back as often as you want.
Well, let me finish this story because it's really amazing how God works. Ron came home from that trip and he said, there's nothing I can do. So I'm going to pray for an earthquake, and I'm going to ask my friends to pray with me. And some of those friends are still around and remember it. So they prayed for an earthquake, and Ron heard on the news in maybe January or late December of 78 that there had been an earthquake out there. And so
wow.
He was still working full time at the hospital. So his vacation was in August. So he goes out there, and what he saw when he got there blew his mind away, because the soil, the earthquake had dropped the soil away from the sides, and it's just like it popped right up out of the earth, and it made a crack right down the middle. You can see part of the crack. And so he was able to get samples for analysis and things like that. But he saw a lot that convinced him even more that this was it. This is a big subject to cover. So
it is. I mean, it's Noah's Ark.
Yeah. And anyhow, that was in 79 that he went back. This picture was taken in 79, first picture he took of it. And in 88, the Turks did recognize this officially as Noah's Ark, and Ron was the guest of honor at the dedication ceremony. And it was a lot of work to get to that point. They did a lot of, you use the metal detectors first to pick up a pattern of iron readings, and then he did radar, and he did all kinds of analysis and everything. But Randall?
Yes.
Do we have a deck timber here?
Yeah, right there on the table.
At the dedication ceremony for Noah's Ark, they brought this, he brought the radar, the big radar, and the governor of the region said, I want only the Turkish authorities to come down to the Ark with me, and I want Ron to bring the radar and show us how it works. So he did. And as they're as they were pulling the radar down, Ron, it's old fashioned compared to today. Ron's looking at the readout and he said, this looks like something. He tells the governor he had never been able to dig on the ark. Only the Turkish authorities can dig.
Right.
And so the governor told a soldier there, dig right there. And what came out, come here, Randall, and just show them. Let's see. Is this deck timber? Can you sit down, honey?
Yeah, maybe.
Let's see.
Thank you so much for lugging that up the stairs, Randall.
And there it is. Boy, you got to hold it high to see it.
This way.
What is
That
so
is
amazing
huge.
about this? I'm going to click to a picture here so you can see when we had it cut.
Yeah.
This is something that God obviously did, because
there's a nail here. It's a square nail. It's titanium.
But anyhow, it's broken off. This end over here, this other end, shows that it was broken off of another timber, a long timber.
Oh,
so
okay.
If they had just found a long timber, Ron couldn't have brought it home, So it was broken off. It is fossilized laminated wood. And you can see in that picture where my head is, I'll move out of the way. Thanks, Randall. We'll show more of this later. The pitch that was used was obviously used to glue the layers together. And you can see how it's all oozing out on the end. And that absolutely preserved it and gave us a good indication of what the wood looks like. So
thank you so much for showing that to me. I never thought, even through Zoom, I'd ever be able to actually look at a chunk of Noah's Ark. And you have no idea what that means to me.
Well, you can just drive your little self up here and see it if you want to sometime.
I will take you up on that, ma'am. I love Tennessee.
Good. No. But anyhow, we'll cover everything in detail if you want to do more programs.
I absolutely do.
Okay.
And if you don't mind, how do you guys address the doubters, the people who say there's no way one person could have found all of these things?
Well, I can understand them thinking that way because I'll tell you this, when I first met Ron, the second time I talked to him, he told me we were going to be married. He said he had prayed. He had a faith like none other. He had prayed and asked for someone to help him. So when he told me that he had prayed for someone to help him, and when he saw me, he said that God told him that I was the one. So when he told me we were going to get married, I just got married to him because I believed it too. And because I had prayed a prayer also, but I knew the kind of faith that Ron had, and I've never known anybody else that had that kind of faith, ever, nobody. And he said he came from a poor family and he had a very rough childhood. And he told me, he said, when I became aware that eternal life was available to me, he said, I was so grateful that I asked the Lord, what could I do for him? And he said at that time, he was just impressed. I don't know any other word to find it, but he had an interest in it, and he studied, and he believed this was something he was supposed to do. Now, keep that question in mind because I do have video of Ron telling about that. He said that, basically no one else volunteered. And in 4 years, he knew where everything was.
Wow. And, I heard you say on another interview, it was probably the one you did with Scott, that Ron had a friendship with Jesus that was like he was talking to a best friend right next to him. And that
Yes.
touched me so deeply. That's been etched on my heart since then. And I've even used what you said then as my goal, talking to Jesus like he's my best friend right next to me.
Yeah. When I first met Ron, he came to my office. I worked for a stockbroker, and he came to my office. And because a man in my office said, "Oh, did I tell you I know the man that found Noah's Ark?" And I said, "Sure, sure, you know." So Ron came to the office. He would come to anybody, one person or 1,000 that was interested. And he came to my office on August 15th. I guess he was coming down to bring his tax returns, and he only had 2 hours, he said, because of the time on his meter. And I had never heard anybody talk about Jesus like he did, like he was a real person. My life changed the first time I heard Ron talk. Mm-hmm.
That is so awesome. Now,
Well,
and you went traveling a lot with Ron. I imagine you've
yes,
been to many of these places. Is there
yes.
one time that's particular over the others that was like more dangerous than your others? Can you share one of those
Hmm.
experiences?
I haven't really been in any dangerous. Okay, you want a dangerous? I'll tell you one. I just happen to remember this.
This is going to be
We
good, I can tell.
It's funny. We were in Egypt, and I needed pictures. Because the Pharaoh who died in the Red Sea, I needed a picture of a stele that was positioned right between the jaws of the Sphinx,
Hmm.
and it was off limits. And I snuck on there, and because I just wanted a picture. And a man started fighting with me, and they were doing construction. They had a lot of fences, so it's all my fault. I can't complain about anything. And we had with us a Ron and a man who was a commando type, And so I yelled, I screamed, "Ron!" And this other man heard also, and he came, and this other man came and got me, and Ron held the other guy tight, and he said, "Take your picture, take your picture." So I took the pictures, and then that was the worst thing. Oh, wait, now there's another one.
Okay.
Okay, another time I told you about his metal detecting equipment.
Uh-huh.
Well, we had this strange device. It looked like what did it look like? A space gun, but it would identify attracted gold, and it worked. And so we were out in front of the Great Pyramid doing that one time. We got arrested, but that worked out good because we met people who helped us. It was good. Everything worked out good.
Isn't it amazing? How many times did God do something like that for you guys, where you get in a sticky situation and you actually bring something fruitful from it?
A lot. One time, we were bringing our very first tour group to 1991, and Ron went on ahead with the main part of the group, but he wanted me to get some photos at Sodom and Gomorrah. And so there were two other men with me. I was sitting in the back. They were sitting in the front of this little bitty car, and we're driving along. And the driver's going, "Oh no, we're almost out of gas." And we had to go we had to go all the way to Galilee to get them. There's no way we had enough gas. And back then there were no gas stations like there is now. So we're driving along, and I'm looking over, and I'm keeping an eye on the gas. And the driver says, "There's a guy on the side of the road." And there was a guy out in the middle of nowhere standing with his arms, just like this. So he pulls the car over and goes to talk to him. And while he's talking to him, I watched the needle on the gasoline go all the way up to a fourth tank. I started screaming.
No.
Yeah, I started screaming. I didn't know. It freaked me out. it got us all the way there, though.
There's
We
no
had
question that God had his hand in that.
oh yeah, I mean, it's a lot of little things like that happen, and it's amazing to have been able to live through these things and to experience them, and I'm very grateful for that.
I can only imagine. I can only imagine. Now, and going to all of these places and being able to hold these artifacts in your hand, has that significantly increased your faith?
Holding the artifacts has not increased my faith, but being there, maybe, I don't know. I can't answer that because I've been living with them since 1988. So maybe so. I will tell you a funny thing. That deck timber, when Ron and I lived in Nashville, we had several cats, and every one of our cats wanted to stand on that deck timber. And really, yeah. And Ron wondered if it was maybe, I don't know, maybe they felt something connecting to their early beginnings or something. I mean, he knew that was a joke, but the cats all loved it.
Well, I mean, the scriptures do say that God drew the animals to the ark. So
Yes.
maybe just a little bit of that something special is still attached to it. Wouldn't that
Who
be
knows?
cool?
I don't know, but I have to be careful and not put too much supernatural stuff out there, because we all know how God works. If we're a Christian, we know how he works.
Yep.
And I think that the more faith that we have, the more liberty he has to work in our life like that. I don't think someone who's not got a strong faith is going to experience as much of that.
Okay. I could get that. Yeah. That's a beautiful thought. So is there anything else that maybe you and Randall are planning to discover together? Because personally, I would love to know where the lost tribes of Israel are.
I don't know anything about that. No, I don't.
Do you guys have plans
No,
to try to find other places in the Bible? Are you going
no,
to kind of pass the torch on?
no. We're going to just finish what we've been given to do. I honestly don't believe we're going to be here long enough to pass the torch on. I believe it's very near the time for the Lord's return.
I have to agree with you. I think we're near the end of that storyline.
Yeah, I think so too. And I mean, all we have to do is look at everything. Look at everything
I know exactly what you mean.
And
we're
Jesus
living
said,
in the days of Noah.
Yes. And Jesus said, I come to destroy those who destroy the earth. So we've pretty well done a great job of that. Everything is polluted, our water. No amount of climate change agenda is going to clear up our water, get the plastics out of the oceans or anything like that. I think it's too late. Yeah. So, I mean, it's only too late for that. It's not too late for us to harvest souls if we work. And that's what we got to do. What Randall and I do now is we just want people to have access to this information. Tim Mahoney has done a series of movies called Patterns of Evidence.
I love his movies, especially the Red Sea crossing miracle.
Mm-hmm. Well, the next one that's coming out October 16th, 17th, something like that, I will be in that one. And,
no kidding.
Telling about Ron's discovery at Mount Sinai. Because what I don't really like about his movies is he includes everybody, even those who don't believe in the Bible.
Yeah.
But he told me, he says, I've got to do that. That's how you do these things. So, we'll see. I know that this is the right place. There's nothing else on earth that has all of this there.
You
And
know, what I love about Tim Mahoney is he does present both sides out of
mm-hmm,
fairness and just to be able to get it
right.
presented. But he does give you that little wink to let you know that he favors the biblical encounters, the biblical
Yes.
explanations for it. I
Yes.
really liked him. I didn't know that you
Yes.
and Mr. Mahoney knew each other. That's awesome.
Yeah. 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 He's been here several times, and um, he's, you know, um, he's brilliant. He's a master storyteller, a master cinematographer. And we won't be here to see the movie, so I'll have to wait till I get back and get a DVD.
Oh no. Okay. Talk about timing.
Yeah, that's okay.
So out of all the things that you guys have collected, all of these artifacts, do you have
Mhm.
a particular favorite?
Probably, well, of course, the deck timber. We'll take a closer look at that in another program. But when Ron was searching, digging, looking for the Ark of the Covenant, he found a squarish rock like this, and that got his attention. It made him think that that's something. It's down, 30 feet under the ground. It's covered in dirt. He's digging everything out, and he finds this, and he removes it, and he found what turned out to be what he believed held the cross hold of Jesus. And that is probably one of the favorites. Yeah.
That's
And
so cool.
yeah. And then there's another thing at Noah's Ark, a rivet that he had seen these in the side of the structure in groups of like 9, 12, 15, and they were big rivets, like this big. And that's how the ark was built. You had to have something to hold the wood together.
Right.
And so these were in groups where there were major intersections. And one of them on our 1991 trip, our first tour group, right as he was getting on the ark, he picked up something, handed it to his driver and said, "Put it in your pocket." And then when we looked at it, it was a fossilized rivet. And we had it tested, and it's got titanium, strontium, aluminum, iron, space age metals. In fact, the first piece back in 1984, Ron found a piece that he wanted to have tested, and he got to be friends with the Apollo 15 astronaut, Jim Irwin.
Oh,
And
really?
and he asked Jim if he could get this specimen tested, because Ron, he didn't have any connections, while Jim did. And he sent it to someone at Los Alamos Labs, and the man who ran the test was so convinced that this was something space age, he thought that perhaps a missile had crashed out there, and Ron thought it was Noah's Ark. And so that brought that researcher into the research, And so it's a lot of things like that. There's a lot of surprising things with Noah's Ark. Some of the things that some of Ron's work has showed us is that there's people who think that the further we go back in time, the more that we didn't know very much. But the truth of the fact is that after the flood, for a while there, all the knowledge from before the flood was available, in Noah's family.
Yeah, you're right.
And the ark was a very space age built ship. And
Wow.
in 2014, we had to have a friend in New Zealand who, he's a single man, and he sold his house and he bought resistivity equipment just for Noah's Ark because he believed that strongly in it. But he didn't get to do the resistivity scans until 2014, and Randall helped him. And Oh my goodness, we learned some stuff about that ark. The ark is, Ron thought from his radar. Now, if you know how radar works, it shoots straight down.
Mhm.
You know, it's you can't do 3D with the old radar that he had. He had to, do the side and then meet it up with this, and the same over here. Well, this resistivity, he was able to do 3D, and we found out that the ark is still, there's 40 foot of it still down in the ground. And Ron
Wow.
thought it was all collapsed. So it's very exciting, these new things. And you can see those scans in another program. So,
Do you know if he was ever able to get photos of the house that he believed that would have been
mhm,
Noah's and his family?
mhm,
You do have
yes,
pictures of that? I
yes,
would love to
yes.
see those on another
Yeah, we'll
program
have
too.
all of that. Yeah, we
Wow.
can, we'll have all of that. Once you get started, if you really are interested in this stuff, it's going to take a long time because it's a lot of stuff. It's a
I
lot
am
of,
down. I love biblical history and I love archaeology, and you are a gold mine.
oh, well, good. I mean, I'm glad because this is all my life and Randall's too. When I say that's, no, I don't mean that. We have a good life and everything, but we're retired. This is the purpose of our life. And we are honored to share it when you ask. And you asked.
Well, there is a whole new generation of people my age that are coming out
Mhm.
and realizing that all of these things have been there and that they've been discovered, and being able to stand on the shoulders of giants like you and Randall and Ron, that's a blessing, and we couldn't thank you guys enough.
Well, it's definitely an honor. And when we do Mount Sinai, we'll get Randall on here because he's been there. He's seen it all, and he can really talk about that. Of course, he's been everywhere else too. But I will tell you this: we will not do the Ark of the Covenant until the end. I can't do all of that. I can do some of it, but but yeah. If your viewers are interested, we will do a series on each subject.
I would absolutely love that. And I'm looking forward to the Mount Sinai episode. I would love to do one about the Red Sea crossing. You guys, all the
Hmm.
pictures we have of the chariot wheels, that came from you guys. That's your work.
That's all of us. Yeah. Yeah.
Wow.
Well,
Um,
but it was before me. It was Ron's, you know.
yeah. But you went through all the effort of putting the history and putting the research together to prove his claims and to prove that these locations he found were the legitimate places. Um,
I just did what he asked me to do. He would ask me, I need the research to back this up. And that was what I did. We had a newsletter where we'd go through there and do each subject. And um, I made all his videos from the very beginning, and they were really amateurish, but he would not have it any other way. He, he said, I want you to do them. And even after I'm gone, he says, I want you to do them. So I'm still doing them. And that's, that's pretty much it, because God didn't reveal these things just for me, just for Randall, just for Ron. These are for people. Let me tell you, before I rededicated my life as a confirmed Christian,
mhm.
I I could argue with anybody on the Bible. I I didn't want to hear it, you know.
And isn't it
And
funny? You're so far on the other side of that spectrum now.
it is, and it's all because my daughter had wanted to get baptized. I sent her to church. I'd even go sometimes because it was just expected in the South, you know.
Yep.
But Amanda wanted to get baptized, and when they called me from the church, they said, we need to talk about scheduling Amanda's baptism. And I said, what? She never told me she wanted to get baptized. And when she got home from school, she was 12, I think, at the time. And I asked her, I said, why didn't you tell me you wanted to get baptized? She said, I was afraid you'd be mad at me.
Oh,
I know, I know. And when she said that, I began my long journey of investigating the scriptures and coming to a conclusion. And I did. It took me a number of months, but that's all I did after work, as I was studying. And I, became convinced that the Bible was true.
from the mouth of babes.
Amen. Yeah.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
Miss Mary, now talking to you has been one of the honors of my lifetime, and I really do mean that.
Oh, it couldn't be as much of an honor as it is for us to be able to share these things because they're so important. We live in an age now where young people, I have a grandson who's 19, and he's smart as a whip. He was homeschooled, but when he was 16, he had offers of scholarships. He even got letters from Yale and, places like that.
Wow.
Very smart, but very much his own young man. And he's, from the time he was little, we did Sabbath school here, because we didn't have a place that we could go. And so he grew up in the knowledge of the Lord. And he said, I don't want to go to college. He said, I don't like, because he had, let's see, he went 2 years to college, just driving back and forth some classes while he was still a high school student. And he said, I don't want to be around those kind of people. They teach the stuff in the people that I know who've raised their children in the Lord. Their children are going off to college and they are being pulled away from God into very ungodly activities and things like that. And I'm so thankful now that my Matthew chose not to go to college.
Well, and the things they're teaching in school to start, I don't want to use the word brainwashing or the phrase, but for lack of a better term, it's brainwashing.
Yes.
And they use all these manipulated evolution theories that are unprovable, and you'd need to be here for 3 billion years to be able to ever prove it. And, your grandson recognizing that, that's a blessing, but also knowing that you guys are at the tip of the spear when it comes to countering that. That's a bigger blessing.
Yeah. Well, anyhow, there's a lot of kids out there like that. And like you're talking, this younger generation, and we want to get it to them. And we want to get it to them in a manner where they can understand it and say, okay, this is real. This is not somebody just saying, I found Noah's Ark. Here's more evidence than you'll have for anything else that you can find.
And it's amazing how God literally waited till some of the last generations to be able to reveal it. His timing is impeccable.
Yes. Yeah. There's a song my mother loves that we listen to in the car when we go to art classes together, and it's called Our God is an On-Time God.
Okay.
And it talks about he may not come when you want him, but he'll be there right on time. And that's true.
No, yeah, and I have found he often comes at that 12th hour rather than the 11th hour, but even after it's too late and you've lost hope already, his timing was perfect.
Yeah.
I've been humbled many times that way in my life. Yep.
We all have.
Well, Miss Mary, it's been an absolute pleasure having you on. And anytime you're ready to do another episode, you can reach out to me. And if you guys are going to be taking pictures when you go back to Noah's Ark, I would love to see some of those.
Well, we'll do that. I think before we do a movie, a program showing all of that, we need to do one showing everything, and then we can do that. So we might need to do 2 shows. I don't know.
Oh, poor me.
Well, it's just hard. I don't want to skip over anything important,
We can take this as long as you'd like until you've showed everything off. I want as many
Okay.
young people my age out there to be able to have access to this information.
I
And
do
you guys
too.
have so much of it in abundance.
Yeah.
Let's do this.
Okay. We'll do it. Yeah. It'll probably be when I get back, end of October, 1st of November. We'll just plan on we'll start with the first one, Noah's Ark, if you want to do that.
I love it. And then we'll we'll end with the Ark of the Covenant.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, thank
Okay.
you so much for being on today.
My pleasure. My pleasure.